Hi there. Thank you, Becky, Mary, and Charmaine, for giving me the honor of speaking to you here today. Thank you also to the Parkinson's Institute for bringing so many great programs and such wonderful services to our community. And I want to thank you all being in front of me for coming here and participating today. How many of you have seen the movie Forrest Gump? Anybody? It's one of my favorites. Well, Forrest said many wise things, and the dialogue is very important to remember. I'm going to read you a few of his quotes. Forrest Gump: Mom always said life is like a bowl of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Mama Gump: we're all different. You know what? Isn't that true? We may think some people are having a charmed life, but we don't really know what goes under the surface. So yes, we're all different. Mama Gump: you have to do the best with what God gave you. Isn't that true? You certainly do. And that's the best way to live a rich and happy life. A good support group is like having a box of chocolates. Each is different, but the differences make us appreciate each separate flavor more. A well-lived life is doing the best with what God gave you. A successful support group positively addresses creating an alliance with others to share, learn, and move forward with greater strength and knowledge. A support group unites to help us live our best life. I'm going to read you a how-to manual culled from my experiences in being and running a support group. And I hope that some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you will be helpful. A little background. Parkinson's Network of Mount Diablo was incorporated in 1997, I believe. I joined in 2006, as Becky said, right after my very distressing and accurate diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. I was depressed, devastated, and really didn't have anyone to talk to. I found a home in my support group. Now, when I joined, even though the support group had been in existence for 10 years, it was very small. The maximum monthly meetings had about 40 people attending. There were no emails. All our communications were by telephone. There was a newsletter. It had been done by the same person for many years. He did resign, and then there was no newsletter, nothing. The president at that time sent out a typewritten note with just announcements of the coming support group meeting, and that was it. That was the best we could do. So our very merciful newsletter editor came back out of his resignation, out of his retirement, and continued the newsletter because, as he said, you guys were desperate. There was a very small leadership team, limited services, absolutely minimal strategic planning. The status quo prevailed. The familiar was embraced. I was appointed both membership chair and public relations chair. It actually took me about a year to get those positions because they were afraid of me. People thought on the board, some of them anyway, that I might be a loose cannon and make trouble. Well, I was, but it worked out just great. There were bylaws that existed, but nobody knew what they were, where they were, anything about them. So I took advantage of that, and it gave me much greater power than a membership chair or public relations chair would ever have. We were a standalone chapter, support group, not chapter, and I had the freedom to appoint people, create positions, and start programs. Much more power than I would have gotten in a group with established bylaws and formal sessions. So it worked very well, and new ideas and change entered the door when I came in. Now for my how-to manual. There are 3 rules that I think to support group success. My first rule of success is strengthen your public relations and publicity. I'll say that again. Strengthen your public relations and publicity. Get to know as many of the members as you can. Find out what their strengths and talents are. We had no website. We had a man in our group who approached me actually and said he wanted to start a website. Fine, that was a great idea. He went through it, he was about halfway done, and he realized he reached the end of his knowledge and he needed help. Another member stepped forward, a caregiver this time, and he worked with him together and they finished it, and now we have our wonderful website, World Wide Web, pnmd.net. And the two of them are our webmasters and they run this site to this day, and it gets lots of hits. So if I didn't know the members, or if you don't know the members, you may not be able to solve problems or avert accidents, or you won't be able to be as proactive as you can. Our first fundraising chair was a member that came up and said, I'd like to do this. I've done this before I had Parkinson's. He had created a dance party called Deja Vu. It was 50s music. You could sit and listen, or you could actually dance. And it raised $10,000. That was our first fundraiser ever. Just because we were friendly, the board was friendly with the membership. Recently, we found that there was a need for deep brain stimulation information. Some people had it and were dissatisfied with the way they were treated. They needed support. They didn't know what was going on. So in a yoga class, there was a guy named Art Fowler, and he had deep brain stimulation. We talked to him, and lo and behold, he became the leader of the new Parkinson's Network of Mount Diablo Deep Brain Stimulation Group. That group was such a success, there were over 20 people at the first meeting. They now meet several times a year, and they've gotten phone calls from doctors at Kaiser's, even as far away as Pennsylvania. So this is a very important group in giving support to local deep brain stimulation people. I'm going to embarrass one of my good friends, but it's Ken Kuhn. Our first vice president is here today, and he was in the young onset Parkinson's group that we started. He was so able and so energetic and had such imaginative ideas that we knew we wanted him on the board. So he started out as historian, and now I call him Mr. Magic because he wears several hats. He helped with our fundraiser, actually evolved it from last year, and we had a very successful golf tournament and dinner auction this year. He helps with our programming. I can't even remember. There are so many things that he does. Now, sometimes you can't get all the help you need in your support group. So it's necessary to take another step. Reach out into the community for needed specific talents. It's just fine to go outside of your immediate support group. Our newsletter editor quit. Nobody could replace him. We were having this, as I said, typewritten newsletter that was sent to people's homes. And we knew that there were better things that we could have, but we had no one that was willing to step up to the plate. I was at this group called Contra Costa Senior Roundtable, and I made an announcement to about the 30 people in the room. We're desperate, we need a newsletter editor. Is there anybody here that could step up to the plate and work with our group? No answers. Okay, I put it out to the world and nothing was received, but I tried. A couple of days later, I got a phone call from one of the members in the group, and he said, I can do it, I'll do it for you. I'd like to do it. And he's our newsletter editor to this day, and we have a very good newsletter that goes out by postal mail. Publicity is very important too, because when you increase awareness of what you do within and outside your group, you have greater success. We have a publicity person that emails or sends relevant information to media throughout the community. We have our website. We have our newsletter. We have also bought brochures, and there's a copy of it in your packet, and membership benefits list, which is also in your packet, to neurologists, movement disorder specialists, and internists throughout the county. And so they have it, they know about us, they can keep it in their offices, and we replenish them frequently. Another thing that we just decided at our last board meeting is we are going to start sending our newsletter to selected neurologists, movement disorder specialists, and internists, because that's a physical piece of paper. It's very hard to send an email to a doctor because a lot of them just want to answer health questions on their emails, or they don't have an email address. But if they have our newsletter, The Shaky Times, in their hands, they can see what we're doing, they can know how to refer people to the appropriate department. It's just going to be much more accurate in updating their knowledge. Anything that you do for the community brings increased awareness. I mentioned before we had a golf tournament and dinner fundraiser. It was in May. The first year it was an event. It was a successful event, but this is the second year and it raised triple the amount of money from from last year. And it also did a very important thing. It promoted Parkinson's disease awareness. You don't just triple your fundraising amount. This shows that when you put yourself out into the community, it comes back to you. One of my most important tips is having an email support attendee list. And you have in your packet an email brochure that I use to get people's names. And we have caregivers as well as PDers in our group. So what I did was I started keeping an email list for caregivers, PDers, and visitors, potential new members. Anybody that had an email at a support group was offered the opportunity to write it down, and after a while I got a huge collection of emails. Now, one tip, if you are doing emails, check the addresses first, because sometimes they're written wrong or they're hard to decipher. So what I do is I have a really large list of accurate email lists, but before I put any new emails on there, I'll send out a little message like, nice to see you, or good meeting you, or just something as a test. If it comes back to me, I know that the email is incorrect and I don't incorporate it, I may tweak it. Or, you know, if it is correct, then it goes on the main list. So beware that you don't hold up your whole email list because you have some incorrect ones that come back to you. Also, people that I'm sending emails to, I very rarely send any attachments. I don't think I've ever done it, because people don't read email attachments. So I cut and paste what would be in the attachment to the body of my email. It may be longer, but it will get read. Emails can be used for reminders for upcoming support group meetings. We have one coming up this Saturday. I usually send out 2 to 3 reminders for people in our group so that they will save the date and be there, and that's one of the reasons that we have attendance. It's hard to forget when you're getting 2 or 3 emails in your box reminding you to come on Saturday and see what's going on, hear this wonderful speaker. It also helps in other ways. We had a wonderful yoga movement class, and the teacher had a separate wheelchair walker class. And I was there and I saw that she only had 2 people in her wheelchair walker class. And a lot of the people that would benefit from it didn't have emails, were not computer literate. So I sent out an e-blast to about all my email members, which is over 200. And lo and behold, the teacher called me the next week and she said, I have 6 new members. Well, we found out that they didn't have internet. They didn't have computers. So how did they hear about it so suddenly? It was because I collected emails from the caregivers. It was their sons and daughters, their families, their friends that brought them, that heard about the class and influenced their older members of their family to join it. And that class is a great success. I think it has 10 to 12 people in it now, and it's going just great. So emails can really open doors for a lot of people. If someone is absent during a meeting, we had the Carey brothers, and they gave a wonderful talk on home safety. They did a very nice handout. But then a bunch of members that were absent emailed me and said, we don't have the handouts. Is there any way we can get them before the next meeting? So I emailed the Carey brothers and I asked them for a copy of their handout. They emailed me one back and I group emailed it to the members. If you need to write something down, a phone number or a web address or something, I can email that out. People don't have to take notes during meetings. Emails are very important. Email follow-up information causes visitors to know what we do, and it also encourages visitors to join our chapter. Second rule for your success, grow your board and try to have as many team players as you can. We have our wonderful older program chair, the last program chair, Natalie, here with us today. And Natalie moved on, and we now have a new program chair named Sandy. And what we do with all of our program chairs, with basically our whole board, is we all help each other. And we don't pay a fee for our speakers. They all have been excellent. Part of the reason is the board, different people on the board have contacts with different potential speakers, and they secure them for the program chairman, who then contacts them from the information that the different board members give her. For instance, we have a Lee Silverman vocal teaching speaker coming up in August, and that was a member's therapist. We have Rob White, a movement disorders cognition expert. He was in a clinical trial that I was in. He was supervising it, actually. And I asked him if he would come, got all his information, gave it to Sandy, our program chairman, and he's speaking on cognition and Parkinson's in July. As somebody as simple as your ophthalmologist, we had an ophthalmologist from the community, and he talks about Parkinson's in the eye, and it was one of our most informative meetings. The Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Carey brothers, lots more were all brought to our program chairman from our team players on the board. So when you're working together, you have much greater strength than if each person is just responsible for their individual job. Our new young onset Parkinson's disease group brought us 4 future board members, and the young onset Parkinsonians created our 2012 May fundraiser that I told you about before. Board discussion should have a lot of time allotted to center on new things or refinements of old things to make them better. We add a lot of time, we leave a lot of time for discussion, and it really helps. It's also important to implement what you do. A good idea is a dime a dozen, but it's the implementation that makes things work. And we have a great board. You really don't have to tell them anything. They just do it. But because I'm this type A personality, I do a to-do list at the end of every meeting, and I put it over the email, which tells the person and the date and the implementation that they've agreed to do. And I have a to-do list. It's in the packet. The third rule for success is the hardest rule of all to follow, because when it's happening to you, you wish it wasn't. And the third rule is there are no problems, just solutions. As I said, our bylaws were pretty bad. They weren't followed. We didn't even know what they were. So when I took over in January as president, I knew that they had to change, even though it would limit me as I had never been limited before. We got a pro bono lawyer from outside of the community, and we went back and forth and back and forth. We had a bylaws committee, and in May we unanimously adopted updated bylaws that reflect where we are today. And they're good, and we follow them, and we know them. So that was a problem that turned into a solution, that turned into a success. We also found out in January that, unbeknownst to us, our support group had no indemnification insurance. We had gone along for years thinking that we did. That was a big problem. Again, we got the insurance, and we had it a month later, and we were secure. So if we didn't know about it, we would be in fool's paradise. But when your problem surfaces, it's often helpful to address it, and it clears the waters. Our database mailing label technician, a board member, wanted to resign for a number of years, and it was coming. And one of the things that we did was we were very proactive. There was a member on the board that could take over for him, and then we initiated another member onto the board in another position who was willing to be trained by this man. And he was, and as soon as he learned it, the old database board member was finally able to quit and live a life free of doing all those mailing labels and all the database. Finally, a real crisis occurred when our speaker canceled, and we had nobody. And fortunately, we turned to the Parkinson's Institute, and we got our wonderful Mary Tunison, who came and spoke about all the wonderful work that you guys are doing here. Again, we would never have known about her if our appointed speaker had not quit at the last minute. So problems can lead the way to excellent outcomes and enrichment in the quality of support group endeavors. Problems open new doors for growth. Now imagine for a minute that you are going to one of our Parkinson's meetings. If the doors would open at 9 o'clock and you would see the Young Onset Parkinson's group meeting there. And they meet from 9 to 10. At 10 o'clock, the regular support group comes in. There's coffee, tea, water, refreshments. You might notice a library table with books that they can check out, some very recent books on Parkinson's, free pamphlets and CDs. Then they would go to a chair or a table and they would sit down. There would be a social hour, not a social hour, a social time. There would be guest hosts and hostesses at the door welcoming the new members or the visitors and making them feel at home. After a short break, the moderator would start to talk before the group, and he would welcome the new members, and if they wanted to, they could introduce themselves. And we have a mic, he would bring it over to them. Then, if there were any announcements or information that needed to be disseminated, that would be done. We have a singing group called the Trimble Clefs, and we have a PowerPoint projector and a huge screen. And there we always have sing-alongs with the Trimble Clefs and the audience, and they're lots of fun. And so that's a way to show off our singing group at every meeting. We like it and they like it. We've emphasized movement in our group. We have exercise gurus that teach our classes, and they usually will lead us in 5 minutes of exercises every Saturday morning. Then finally there's a question and answer period where members share and learn from each other. They give tips, they ask questions. It's really empowering because they're helping each other out. Then we have our speaker who speaks for about 45 minutes, and there's usually a 15-minute question and answer. Every fourth month, there's a breakout support group where PDers talk to other PDers. Caregivers meet with caregivers in another room. A deep brain stimulation group meets with each other. At 12 o'clock, the normal meeting ends. Most people go home. I stay on and talk to the newly diagnosed Parkinsonians, and other board members stay on and answer questions or talk to other people that are in distress or just feel that they need to speak to somebody who has more experience. Now, at 1 o'clock, the room is locked and it's cleaned up and we're out of there. Now, during the week, we have some classes. We don't pay for the classes, but we do subsidize the room rent. We pay for the room rent monthly. At least we've been doing it so far. And they range per class between $15 to $21. So no one is turned away. And if there's a problem with pay, they still get it. Mondays we have Brainworks. Thursday we have yoga for Parkinson's disease. Saturday we have Parkinson's therapeutic movement. Also, we've started having in-home meetings, and every second Saturday there's an in-home rotating caregivers meeting. We hope to start a Parkinson's meeting for Parkinsonians also in home very shortly. So, my talk is almost over. You know my 3 rules of success. Strengthen your public relations and publicity. Grow your board. Try to get in team players, help each other. And finally, There are no problems, just solutions. So we're ready to eat the box of chocolates that Forrest Gump has. Just some signs that you have a successful support group. Look for friendships formed, questions answered, knowledge increased, personal empowerment, devotion of partners and families. Look for appreciation of the joy of living every day. This unites our support group. We are inspired and enriched by the special relationships that we have with our support group. A successful support group can make you feel like Forrest Gump did when he said, "This one day we was out, walking like always, and then just like that, somebody turned off the rain and the sun came out." Thank you.